himself at the center of the 2016 campaign again. And Vladimir Putin's attempts to influence the election are still out there raising questions. So how safe is your vote? Let's discuss with CNN political analyst and author Carl Bernstein, CNN political analyst and New York Times national political reporter Alex Burns, and New York Times national security correspondent David Sanger. David, let me start with you. What do you believe the plus minus is on the election of this latest intrusion by Jim Comey?
Well, in the end, I actually think that we are going to mean more for Jim Comey than they will for Hillary Clinton or for Donald Trump. That what you're going to see here is that many of the people who supported Secretary Clinton, I think in the end, didn't put a whole lot of credence in a last-minute announcement, and now that's been confirmed. And those who believe that Secretary Clinton is guilty of something here probably aren't going to have their opinion change very much by whatever announcement he's made. But I think Mr. Comey didn't come out of it looking so good with these two, just before election, seemingly contradictory announcements.
Carl, I just went at it with Jason Miller, the senior communications director for Trump, about two things. One is, how does Trump justify saying that there was going to be an indictment and that that's what this reopening of the case meant, and refusing to acknowledge the FBI's decision now? But what's your take?
My take is that Hillary Clinton exercised terrible judgment, and that the FBI has shown that this is not a matter thus far, and it seems to have done its conclusion to close the case for now, that it's not a criminal matter. What she did was indefensible in terms of setting up the server. At the same time, to continue to debate this in terms of criminality in this campaign, the decision has been made for now. It's time to move on. And the other terrible judgment throughout has been Comey. He has inserted the FBI into this process in a way that is irresponsible, that has tarnished the FBI, and left our confidence in its role really hurting. So we've got a really bad situation in which we got terrible judgment all around, and especially Trump's judgment in terms of trying to turn this into something that it simply is not. This is not Watergate or anything like it, in which a criminal president had to leave office and 48 people pleaded guilty.
All right, let's pivot. Russia, their intrusion. We know about what the government believes their responsibility is for the hacks that led to the WikiLeaks dumps on Hillary Clinton. But what about Election Day? What are you hearing, Alex, in terms of what should be a concern and what should not be?
Well, Chris, what the campaigns are mostly concerned about, and it really is disproportionately the Clinton campaign that's concerned about this, because they see Russia as intervening specifically against her. What they're concerned about is less that you would have some kind of hack of election systems, and more that you would have just some kind of effort to disrupt the normal functioning of our society on Election Day, that you would have an attack on the internet, right, so that it would be harder for people to find out their polling location. So if people want to guard against that, they can go and look up where they're supposed to vote today. For after the election, I think, is where a lot of the bigger questions about Russia's role in this campaign come in. And David, I think, can probably speak to this better than me.
You work at the same place. David, a lot of what I know about the potential here, I know from your reporting. How do you see it?
Well, I think Alex had it just right that...
well, we've all been reading what you're putting out.
Denial of service attack. A denial of service attack that would, in many ways, I think, blanket those parts of the country that where Secretary Clinton or Donald Trump are trying to get out the vote. And it would just make it hard to figure out how you get to the voting polls and so forth. The second big vulnerability is the registration rolls. These do face the internet, and we've seen that they were scanned by the Russians. We have not seen any effort so far to go change, your address. If you went up, Chris, and you were trying to register, you were trying to vote, and they said, sorry, we have you under a different address, and you had to go do a provisional ballot. We haven't seen that yet. It's something to look for tomorrow. And the last thing to worry about is the reporting of the informal results to the networks, to the Times, other news organizations, because at some point that data's got to come together And if anyone gets in that channel and can manipulate the data, you could have a variance between the informal early reports and what the real vote was.
Well, that's why we are all so paranoid about how we put out predictions. I mean, the protocols here at CNN are daunting, to say the least. Carl, what an odd dynamic that you have a candidate as a change agent in Donald Trump, that's what he says he is, who is saying that everything is rigged that he can, except when it comes to Russia and their role in the hacking of the WikiLeaks. What do you make of that unusual relationship?
Well, first of all, what I make is that Donald Trump is, by his very nature and to his core, an untruthful man with no interest in the truth whatsoever. And what the truth here is, and is demonstrable, is that Russia is engaged in an attempt to destabilize our electoral process. Whether they're trying to favor Trump over Hillary Clinton, that's not determinative at this point, but there is no question that Putin is interested in fighting the United States in the same terms as the old Soviet Union fought the United States, through destabilization, through undercover operations, through this kind of activity, and the new battlefield is cyber. So we've got something that we've got to look at after this election and really guard against, and that the battlefield has shifted here, and that of all things, we used to do, the United States, this kind of thing during the Cold War to other countries. We don't do it anymore, and especially we don't do it trying to destabilize elections in Russia, and we've got to be on guard against this because we're vulnerable, and hopefully we're going to make it through tomorrow without this kind of horror happening that David has written about so well.
Fingers crossed. Alex, David, Carl, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Alice?
Okay, Chris, the 2016 presidential race has been full of bombshells and unexpected twists and turns. So we're going to take a look back at the last year and a half, a race like none other.
Nothing like this. That's just the truth. The 2016 race is going to go down as one for the history books, the wildest, the most memorable, anything you want to call it, and a lot of it negative. Here's a look back at the highs and lows of this race that's certainly like no other.
I'm a candidate for president. I am proud to announce I'm running
for president.
I'm a candidate for president of the United States.
Donald Trump just announced he is running for president.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
We all might look back and say, we remember where we were when it happened.
We will build a wall, and you know who's going to pay for the wall? Mexico. They're going to pay for it. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
The Justice Department asked to open an investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails on her private server.
I have no idea. That's why we turned it over. What, like with a cloth or something?
Before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care. I take a back seat to no one in taking on income inequality.
The Republicans kicked off their first presidential debate.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs.
Only Rosie O'Donnell. You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
I think she's got a beautiful face, and I think she's a beautiful woman.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see, I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands?
He referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem.
The scene of the first Democratic presidential debate.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who likes to get things done.
The American people are sick and tired of hearing about your